This is Sandra Swan Star Power, and we shine the light on people doing extraordinary things in the world of cultural media, faith. And one of my longtime friends is Myra Adams, and she's exceptional. She is so talented. Um, we knew each other many years ago. And Myra, you've got a fascinating story. Tell us a little bit about your walk as a believer from a Jewish believer to Messianic believer in Jesus.
Yes, it's a long, complicated journey. I will
That's
try
okay. We've
to.
got time.
Well, there's so many aspects to it. I mean, you just don't wake up one day and say, "Okay, I believe in Jesus."
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. At least, most of the time, it doesn't happen like that. Okay, so I was born and raised Jewish. My maiden name is Khan, which is a very, very Jewish name. And my parents were not at all religious. And so I grew up in a house where Judaism was more, it was more cultural than it was religious. And that's actually very true. For I would say the vast majority of Jews, at least in the United States, they are very proud of their heritage, very proud of their culture, but they don't worship on a regular basis.
Hmm.
Certainly, there are many that do, but I'd say not a lot about like God and what it means, and there's really not a lot about faith. So I basically grew up really knowing nothing. Absolutely nothing. There was no Bible in our house. I just say literally, I knew nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple things happened which were interesting. When I was about 10, um, my my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was talking one day about famous Jews in history, and she mentioned that Jesus was Jewish, and I was like, "What?" I mean, obviously, I'd heard of Jesus, and it always upset me because during Christmas time, as a little kid, we didn't celebrate Christmas. And it was, to me, it was always like, what is going on here? I was never happy about that because I
Yeah.
grew up in Boston, a suburb of Boston, and it was very Irish, it was very Italian, and, everyone celebrated Christmas, lights everywhere. And even my public school that I went to, in Needham, Massachusetts. We had a Christmas concert every year, and whether you were Jewish or whatever you were, you sang in the Christmas concert. And we sang Christmas carols, and it was always fun. It was a big deal. So my grandmother announces that Jesus is Jewish, and I was really kind of shocked. Here I am, like 10 years old, and I'm really kind of shocked here. Okay, so what happened was, like the next year, at our sixth grade Christmas concert, we were singing a Christmas carol called The First Noel. And at the end of the Christmas carol, it says, Born the King of Israel. And I am now completely confused because now I know Jesus is Jewish and he's born the King of Israel. I'm singing about him. Everyone celebrates Christmas except me.
Yeah.
I'm not happy. I'm stuck with Hanukkah, which means really practically nothing to me. So I'm not happy about this. So I asked my mother, the great Jewish scholar, so Mom, why don't we believe in Jesus? Because Jews don't believe in Jesus. Okay, good.
No explanation.
No explanations. Right, exactly. So that kind of stuck with me. So that was kind of at the very, very back of my mind. But what also happened around that same time, this was in 1964, 65. So I was again around 9 or 10 years old. Parents took me to what was a huge event in the culture at the time called the New York World's Fair, the 1964 New York World's Fair. And anyone of my age, lived on the East Coast will know it was a really, really big deal. And so the pavilions, they had these different country pavilions, and the country pavilion for the Vatican was they had one of the most popular exhibits. So there were lines and lines and lines to get in. And all I knew is that it was a famous sculpture by an unpronounceable name that I had never heard of, Michelangelo. And all I know is we're waiting in the sun, in the hot weather, waiting to get into see this sculpture. And so finally we get there. And of course, I didn't know anything about it. And it turns out it was the Pietà. Of course, I didn't know that. My parents, didn't talk about it, except that this is a big thing and we're going to go see it. Everyone else is waiting in line. We're going to wait in line too. So we're waiting in line. And finally, we get up to the pavilion and they had this moving walkway. And this I will never forget. This moving walkway. You get on it, and so the Pietà is right in front of you, and this moving walkway, and I'm seeing this. Now, keep in mind, I didn't know who those people were in this sculpture. I didn't know really anything about it, except I see this sculpture, and I am like kind of blown away by it. I thought it was so amazing. And I heard something in my brain, and it said to me, "You will remember this moment forever."
Hmm.
Okay. And honestly, at the time, I didn't even know what that meant. I really didn't, except that I remembered hearing that, seeing the Pietà. And again, I didn't know it was the Pietà. I didn't know it was Jesus or Mary. I'm like 9 years old. It's like I really didn't know anything about this. And my parents certainly, weren't encouraging my learning. So just put that aside for a minute too.
Okay.
Okay, so that happened. And then the whole thing with the Christmas Carol,
Yeah.
when I was sort of, a little bit dismayed that we can't celebrate Christmas if Jesus is the King of Israel. Why are we singing about Jesus as the King of Israel when Jews don't believe in Jesus? And I hear Jesus is Jewish. So you
Yeah.
can imagine, I mean, I wasn't a dumb, 10, 11-year-old at that time. So I was like, what is going on here? Something is not
Yeah.
making sense to me. Okay, so then what happened? Fast forward now to, I think I was a sophomore in high school, and I had a boyfriend who was a senior. And so he invited me to midnight mass, and I had never been to church before. So I thought, okay, that sounds fun. My parents said, yeah, you can go. I thought it was just, cultural thing. So they were all into culture, which is good. So they let me go. And it was like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I mean, it was this old church, St. Joseph's Church. Of course, I'd been by it 100 times. It was right in downtown Needham, and beautiful old Gothic church. And it was candle lit, and
Oh.
and the Christmas carols and the decorations. And I'm like, oh my God, I was just blown away by this. I'd never seen anything like this before. Never experienced anything like that before.
Hmm.
So again, I didn't really know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew whatever it was a kind of a big deal, and everyone there was, really getting into it. And so I was just kind of taking it all in. So all those things kind of happened, you could say. And then a really, really weird thing happened to me. I was deciding whether or not where I was going to go to college. And for about a year, strange things started happening. Keep in
Oh.
mind, I'm living in Needham, a suburb of Boston, and I'm seeing like, and I start noticing it all the time. And it was like the words Ohio. I kept hearing the words Ohio all the time.
Hmm.
And I could not understand it. I would see license plates. I would meet people from Ohio. I would read an article about Ohio. It's like all of a sudden, it's like I've never been to this state. I don't know anything about this state.
Hmm.
And so off I go to Ohio, and my parents are like, "What is this?" I mean, they were just like, that was about the farthest they were going to pay for me to go. And so my guidance counselors in school were like, "Why are you going out there with all the farmers?" So, I mean, I was getting so much grief from people. Like, why
Huh.
there? I mean, it's just this kind of like this Boston, Needham kind of attitude that, why would you go out there?
Uh-oh.
We're so much better than them. It's really, I'm not kidding you. That was the reaction I was getting constantly. But I was like determined. I'd never been there. So I I couldn't defend it except that I knew I was going there for whatever reason I was going. And again, I didn't put it together until I was at Ohio State for a couple of years where another strange thing started happening. I started just like feeling like that the Lord was Jesus was talking to me.
Hmm.
I felt like it was, and this is the only way I could ever describe it to people. I felt like it was like a ring through my nose that I was being led, this ring through my nose, to follow. I didn't really know it was Jesus. He didn't say it was Jesus, but it was just
Mm-hmm.
like I knew it was Jesus. And I just was getting this ring through my nose
Hmm.
that I was supposed to follow him.
Hmm.
And so I did. And then I found a church right around the corner from where I lived, and I started going there. And then the my senior year, June of my senior year, I got baptized, and so I consider myself a Christian. The problem was I didn't know anything. I'd never read a Bible in my life.
Wow.
Okay, so I used to say that I had faith before I had knowledge. And that was the only way I could describe it. So over time, I started, educating myself. I go to church and I started getting the Bible study. And the other thing that happened for many, many years, this happened for about 10 years. It was 1975 that I came to Christ. It wasn't until around 1985 I thought I was the only person in the world, the only Jewish person in the world that believed in Jesus.
Wow.
And the thing that's really interesting, do you remember Lon Solomon
Oh,
and
yeah.
McLean Bible?
Yeah, I
I
went there.
re Yeah, I know you did. I know you did. And I remember I went there a few times too. I remember one time in one of his testimonies, he had said that he thought he was the only Jewish person in the world that believed in Jesus. I'm
Hmm.
hearing that and I'm like, wow, okay, I know I wasn't crazy. And then it turns out later I met other Jews that came to faith around that time. So
Huh.
something was going on. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because when you had Nina May on, she was talking about the Holy Spirit coming
Hmm.
upon people in the East Coast. This was around that same time.
Wow.
So definitely, when she said that, my ears really perked up. So I think I was part of that same. Obviously, I wasn't a Jesus freak, but that Holy Spirit that was coming upon people at that time. Although she was already in the church. I was a nothing burger. But the fact that that Holy Spirit was reaching people as they needed to be reached. And to me, it was just like, ring through the nose. And I
But he had
just,
been speaking to your spirit all along, even
well,
as a child.
yep, as exactly. He had been speaking, but I didn't even remember any of that until
Hmm.
years later. I was like putting it together, and I called it seeds. These little seeds were planted, and
Yeah.
I didn't even really understand until way later. I put them together like these were all part of these steps that all one day was like, oh my God, he's been talking to me for years and years and years, and I didn't even know it, and I wasn't supposed to know it. I was supposed to know it when I was supposed to know it.
Yeah.
So that part
God's
of it was
timing is
really
perfect,
interesting.
right?
Yeah, so it was for many years. I started educating myself, and one thing led to another. And again, I really didn't have any formal faith training, so I just went to whatever church was around the corner. And when I was in college, and then I moved to Old Town Alexandria, and I went to Christ Church. So I was now an Episcopalian, and didn't really know what that meant, but I went to church there, went to Bible study there, had made a lot of friends there,
And the
and then
liturgy was very similar to that Catholic church.
yes, yes, it was. It was. Actually, the first churches I used to go to were Methodist churches because that was around the
Okay.
corner from where I lived at Ohio State. I wasn't very picky. It was like, okay, I believe in Jesus now. I'm supposed to go to church. It's not like I had any mentors that were leading me. I was just like, I'm just like wandering in the desert myself here.
Wow.
And it's not something I really talked about. I didn't really tell anyone this, that, Jesus came to me. I'm now following him. Of course, my parents, I told them I started going to church, and they were, of course, they weren't religious, but they weren't happy because, again,
Uh-oh.
it went against the whole cultural thing, and that
Mm.
lasted for years. I mean, it lasted for years. I mean, my parents and all my relatives were not happy. Again, they weren't religious, but it doesn't make any difference. Religion has nothing to do with it. It's the culture. It's the culture. It's like you're Jewish. Eddie, if you're not Jewish, if you believe in Jesus, you're a traitor. I mean, that
Mm.
really is I mean, that's really the bottom line there. I've
Mm.
dealt with that my whole life. I mean, this isn't something I really talk about that often. For many years, I never mentioned it at all that I was Jewish. And then over time, things did start happening to me that I really believe that the Lord led me to more public ministries. And now I do talk about it more often. I am very selective still. I don't bring it up
Mhm.
all the time. And my husband sometimes would bring it up in conversation with people like I hardly knew. And I was like, "Ugh, don't say that. Let me bring it up." Because
Yeah.
it's always like you're a circus freak. And everyone always wants
Huh.
to know the story. And it's
Yeah.
not an easy story to just blurt out. Normally
Hmm.
I would just say, yeah, I came to faith when I was in college And, that's kind of what I say. I don't go with the whole ring through the nose and I was clueless. And, I, I don't really go into it because you really have to nuance the story. So I really don't like to talk about it that much. But one thing has led to another. And starting in February of 2020, I started writing a Bible study. Now, I'm not a Bible scholar by any means. So my friends who knew me, back in those days when I was just really learning about the Bible,
Uh-huh.
when they found out I was writing a Bible study, I can imagine. Myra, a Bible study? Yeah, sure. So over time, obviously I've educated myself, but I never say, I'm a Bible scholar by any means. But what I am, and what comes out in this weekly Bible study that started in February of 2020 at townhall.com,
Okay.
that has now run for, I'm in my sixth year.
Wow.
It runs every Sunday. It's called a Quick Bible Study, and it runs with the op-eds because townhall.com is a political website. It's a conservative news website. It is
Mhm.
not a religious site. And so I won't bore you with the whole backstory of how I ended up writing a Bible study on there. But one thing led to another. I ended up
I don't
writing the
know.
Bible
That sounds
study.
interesting to me because
It,
it's
it was interesting.
unlikely place for you to land, and I think it's fascinating.
Yes. It was interesting, actually. And I will tell you the abbreviated story.
Okay.
But the point is, right now, is the Bible study has been running for 6 years. And it is amazing the comments I get every Sunday. I put my Gmail address on there. So I get personal emails and people comment on the site. And the emails people write me, the comments people write me about how my Bible study is the first thing they read every Sunday before they go to church, how,
Wow.
whatever I wrote about that week, changed their life. It's just, it kind of blows my mind away. I have no idea what I'm going to write about. For next Sunday, I have no idea what I'm going to write about. I wait for the Lord to tell me what I'm going to write about. And he does. He lets me know. And that is amazing. And I write it in the Bible study. I felt called to write about this. Because I know that whatever I'm called to write about, someone's going to send me an email and said, that was exactly what I needed to hear.
Oh, that's beautiful. I
And
love
that's what
that.
happens. And so I feel like, and people say the Lord's using you in your Bible study. And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, here I am, send me, use me.
Right.
Because I am not the most likely person to write a Bible study. But one thing I do have that is interesting is my faith walk. Having grown up Jewish, but not religious. And then I guess you could say I was a Messianic Jew, but I didn't know I was a Messianic Jew because I didn't know anything about Messianic Jews. I just became a believer in Christ. And later I found out that there's this organization called Jews for Jesus, and I guess I'm one of them. And I never really joined it, but I knew about it. In fact, Lon Solomon was involved with that, who was the
That's
pastor of
right.
McLean
Yeah,
Bible.
he was.
And then I became, I guess, an Episcopalian. And then I left the Episcopalian church because I believed that Christ had left Christ, the church I went to called Christ Church. I believe Christ had left Christ Church. And so I then really actually got more evangelical. That's why I started going to McLean Bible occasionally. So I really consider myself a no labels lover of Christ.
Mm.
And then I met my husband and I got into more worship as a Catholic. And then I became a Catholic. So now since 2002, I've been a Catholic. But I have that perspective. I joke that I speak Messianic Jew, I speak Episcopalian, I speak evangelical, I speak Catholic. I speak all those things,
You can
um,
address the body of Christ across the whole
that's exactly right. I
country.
really am a no labels. I mean, I really do consider myself no labels
Hmm.
lover of Jesus because I
Hmm.
understand all
Well,
those
that's what it's
different
all about,
ways.
isn't it?
Yes, that
Yeah,
is exactly what it's all about. So
exactly.
I write the Bible study from that perspective because I truly understand the Judaism part of it.
Hmm.
And the more you read the Bible, you understand the connection between the Old Testament and the New Testament and how the New Testament fulfills the Old Testament. And of course, I love the Messianic prophecies. There's so much about it that I just love, particularly the connection between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I do try to evangelize Jews. And I do have many Jewish readers, and some of them don't like me, as you can imagine.
I wonder
And I,
why.
Yeah, but it's okay. I mean, I know they
Yeah.
like it when I write about the Old Testament. So that's where we are. What happened, how I started writing this Bible study on a political website. And in
And
fact,
that,
sometimes I get comments. People will say, "What is this Bible study doing on this political website? I came here for
ah,
politics and I get this Bible study." It's like, well, don't read it, because
yeah,
I am right on Sundays. I'm on the left-hand side of town hall where they have all the columnists. And so, they all the different op-eds, and then, there's Bible study.
yeah,
And so no one is making you read it.
right.
So, but it turns out I do have a lot of regular readers, and then I'll get an email from someone saying, "Oh, I just stumbled upon this. I love this. Thank you." But it's amazing how it has caught on.
Mm,
What happened, to try to make a long story short, I lead a ministry about the Shroud of Turin, which I believe is the burial cloth of Jesus. The Shroud of Turin has never been more popular. It is at heights of popularity that it has never been before. More and more people around the world do believe it is, in fact, the burial shroud of Jesus, because the mysteries, there's no explanation for the mysteries. There's no explanation why that image of that crucified man that mirrors the Gospels is on this burial shroud. There's no explanation for it in modern
mm,
science whatsoever. Before I started writing the Bible study, again, I'm a political columnist also. I've been writing political op-eds since 2010 on many different national websites, and exclusively for The Hill. Every other Friday, I write an op-ed for The Hill. But before that, for several years, I was a contributor to Real Clear Politics as one of their in-house contributors. For that, I was also writing for National Review online, written for Washington Examiner.
mm,
Anyway, so yeah, I've written for quite a few different websites because I have an interest in politics that I've got at Ohio State. Yeah, two things happened when I went to Ohio State. One, I became a Republican. I had grown up in Democrats. I never met a Republican in my life. I became a Republican, and I became a Christian. So I guess that's the reason why God sent me to Ohio State, because
wow.
both those things are
Yeah.
who I am today. So that's part of
Amazing.
that whole like connecting the dots of my faith walk. That was Ohio State that did both of those things, which is really
Wow.
fascinating. Anyway, so I was writing my political op-eds for different websites, and one day I was at a CPAC event, the Conservative Political Action. What's it? Political Conservative Caucus, whatever they call it. I forget
Mhm.
the abbreviation stands for. And I met someone who was running for town hall. And so I said, "Hey, I'd love to run for town hall." And they said, "Yeah, well, here, send me your email and I'll connect you with the editor." So I got connected with the editor. And so town hall got into my stable of places I was writing. So one day, it was Easter, and this was April of 2019. And so it was Easter time. And so I told my editor I wanted to write a op-ed, quote unquote, about Easter and the Shroud of Turin. And so she said that was fine because it was Easter. So I did that. Okay, so then one thing led to another. I knew one of the top executives at Salem Media. I knew him actually from politics. And so I was talking to him about something unrelated one day. And he said to me, that op-ed you wrote about the Shot of Turin, it was so popular. I knew it was. It was number one on town hall for, the whole day.
Wow.
He said that was a really popular op-ed. He goes, you should write a faith piece on Sundays. I'm like, me write a faith piece? I don't think so. It's like, I'm a political writer. I'm not a religious writer. Obviously I was interested in the Shroud of Turin, but was not an expert. Although we did have a ministry. I started the ministry at that time. So I said, okay, but thanks. And then something hit me several months later, and I wrote my first piece, my first Bible study. And I sent it to my editor at Town Hall, and they rejected it. And she said, we're a political website, unless it's a holiday or something like that. We don't have Bible studies here. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. And then a few months later, I wrote another one. I submitted another one. But this time, I played what I'll call her boss's boss card, because the person that I knew was the boss of her boss.
Ah,
He was a big, one of the big people at Salem, which
uh-huh.
owns Town Hall, which owns, many, many Christian radio stations and websites.
Right.
And so
And I used to
I
work for
pulled.
them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. You worked for a Salem radio station. That's right,
Yeah.
WAVA.
Hmm.
So I pulled that. Not pull it. When my editor rejected it, I said, "Oh, by the way, here's the email from. I won't mention his name." And she goes, "Okay."
Not going to
So
argue with that,
not
right?
gonna argue with that one. So the Bible study ran, and and then it started, getting clicks. It caught on with people.
Awesome.
So now, 6 years later, it's still
Amazing.
running.
That
It
is
is
amazing.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, it
Yeah.
truly is amazing. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a God
God
thing.
has his
Again,
finger
it comes
on
up the
your
shadow of
life,
Turin.
Myra.
Yeah, that is really, really true. Well, he has his finger on all of our lives.
Right. But I'm just
Sometimes
saying,
we
as
don't
far
know it.
as directing your career from a
Mhm.
young age, the Lord has really just placed you and positioned you just in the right place to give you the influence that he wants you to have for his kingdom. So,
Well, he does that to people, though. I think he does that to people who are open to him,
hmm.
that have certain skills that he knows, okay, that person's capable of doing this. I'm going to lead them in that. You open your window and he comes through
Yeah.
and he will guide and lead your path. He is the light that, guides and leads our path, but you have to be open to it and you have to want to serve him.
Yes.
And that's really the main thing. It's like, here I am, send me. I love that scripture from Isaiah. It's one of my favorite scriptures. I've written about it in my Bible studies. Actually, I think I've written about it a couple times because I like it so much.
Mm.
Because I believe it speaks to speaks others to others.
Mhm.
When you feel like you are just wanting to serve him, you love him, you want to serve him, and you just say, here I am, send me, and he sends you.
He does.
He sends you
One thing
along these
I
paths.
wanted to mention that when you started talking about your ministry with the Shroud of Turin, something that popped up in my mind was when Jesus rose from the dead, the first person he revealed himself to was a woman, Mary. And he said, "Go
That's right.
tell my brothers that I have
Hmm.
risen."
That's right.
And it's just remarkable how he has been using you as his messenger. And the Shroud of Turin is all about the resurrection of
Well,
Christ.
yes, of course.
So
It's the
there's a
proof,
great
I believe.
correlation
It's
there
proof.
between that
Yes.
scripture and what you're doing. And, you know,
Thank you.
yes.
Yes. Well,
So,
Mary Scrambled is my name is Myra. My husband calls me Mary Scrambled
ah,
because Mary was, a nice Jewish girl who found herself pregnant. So, it's a remarkable story. I've written about it many
it
times
is.
when it comes for
So,
Christmas time.
so Myra is from Mary, the name
Actually,
Mary.
it's interesting because my given name, the way it was spelled, was Mira. So I went through most of my life, up until my 30s. My name was Myra, but it was spelled Mira.
Mm,
And I know it came from my paternal grandfather, whose name was Maurice. When you are Jewish, you are named after somebody who is deceased. So
hmm.
I was named after Maurice, but also Myra, it could also be part of Miriam, which
Mm,
was Miriam is in fact Mary's Hebrew name.
okay.
Mary
Didn't
is
know that.
anglicized, just like Jesus and
Right.
Yeshua was his Hebrew name. Miriam was Mary's name, and in
Uh-huh.
fact, Moses's sister, she was named Miriam also. So anyway, so my mother spelled my name Mira, which growing up caused me unmitigated grief because
Mm,
people would see it Mira, like a teacher was reading like the roll in school, and she would see my name right and say Mira Khan.
mm,
And it's like, no, it's Myra.
mm,
Okay. Then people who would write my name would write it Myra. I'd say,
mm.
no, no, I spell it with an I. So finally, in my 30s, I just like, I've had enough. So I changed it to Myra. So
It's a
now
beautiful name.
that's
I love it. Yeah,
well,
it's really
thank
cool.
you. I appreciate that, but it's really
Yeah.
funny. And you know what's interesting? When I see kids that have names that are not your normal kind of spelling, I feel sorry for them because they would probably go through exactly what I went through. I always have to
Hmm.
tell people, no, you spelled it wrong, you said it wrong. And I always say to parents, name your kids in such a way that people know how it sounds, know how it's spelled, and the two are compatible,
Mm.
because it's like something you just always have to deal with. And it's
Hmm.
unfair. It's unfair for little kids. And I never understood why my mother did that.
Mm.
But anyway, that's what happened.
Well,
So.
that is a great story. I wanted to find out if you want to tell our audience, if they don't want to go to all those different websites, can we just go to myraadams.com? Myra.
Yes, Myra at MYRAADAMS.com is I call it my archival site.
Okay.
It had on the front are all my Hill op-eds that I write every other Friday. And in fact, this past one was about God, how the founders included
On
God
the
in
Hill. That's
and
fascinating.
thehill.com, how the founders included God in the Declaration of Independence,
I
because
read
this
it. It
past
was well
Friday, well,
done.
thank
Yeah,
you.
very
Well,
well
this
done.
past Friday was the 4th of July.
That's
So
right.
I didn't feel like writing my typical, op-ed on the 4th of July. So I told my editor that, hey, it's the 4th of July. I need to write something, and this is what I'm going to write. So he said, fine. So that's how it ended up on there. Normally, God is not, prominent in my Hill pieces as opposed to in my weekly town hall Bible studies. He is prominent. But yes, if you go to myradams.com, right on the front page, it says "Click here for Myra's archive," and on that page are all the places that I have that I write. I said
Okay.
I write now on the Hill for the last many years and Town Hall, so you can click on that and see all the different columns, and then it lists all the different other places that I have written over the years. What's not on there, because I like to keep it separate, I keep the Shroud of Turin separate.
Hmm.
The website for that is National Shroud of Turin Exhibit.org. It's just how it sounds. National Shroud of Turin Exhibit.org.
Okay.
And that ministry has 16 experts, and we put on exhibits around the country, and we've had some
Where's your
amazing
next exhibit
success.
going to be?
Right? We had a mini exhibit at the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast.
Oh,
We had a very popular little exhibit there. In fact, J.D. Vance, being a Catholic, he's a recent, I guess you could say, I think about 3 years now he's been a Catholic, but he addressed the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast.
you
So
had
we had an
one. You
exhibit
had an
there.
exhibit at the Museum of the Bible too.
Yes, we had an exhibit at the Museum of the Bible. Yes, we helped make that happen. It was the Museum of the Bible's exhibit, but some of my people consulted on it, and we were the ones that were pushing for it. I started working on that in 2018.
Mm.
And then it opened a year late. It was originally supposed to open in 2021, but COVID put it back a year. So it opened up in February of 2022. It was only going to be a 5-month exhibit. It lasted until July of 2022, and it was the most popular exhibit the Museum of the Bible had ever had.
Wow.
Foundation is signfromgod.org. That's our mothership foundation, and that's what really too. We started National Shroud of Turin Exhibit.org, and our goal is to have a permanent exhibit in Washington, D.C., except that we haven't been able to do that, but we've had exhibits all around the country. And now we are going to have more of a permanent exhibit that we have some green lights for down in Orlando.
Oh,
And this could be a long-term exhibit. Very
okay.
exciting. And Orlando is actually even better than Washington, D.C., because you have people from all over the country, all over the world. It's a huge basilica there called Mary, Queen of the Universe. They get thousands of people that go there every Sunday. So we're starting
Mm.
that up. So I'll report back about how that's all going to go, but
Okay.
we're just at the very
And
beginning
we
of it.
have not mentioned your two books that are available
Oh,
for
yes,
people to
right.
purchase. Let's talk about
Um,
that.
Here they are. Da, 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 da. Oh, you're probably reading them backwards.
There we are.
When I
Okay, one and
first
two.
started, yeah, when I first started the Bible study, it was called Bible Study for those who don't read the Bible, but it was too long because then I had whatever the topic was. But the books, these are compilations of my town hall Bible study. The first one I call them volumes, what I read every week. This past week I was at volume number 275. This first book was volume 1 through 56, and the second book was 57 through 113. And I owe myself many, many books. As I said, now I'm up to volume number 275. But because I got so involved with the Shroud of Turin exhibit, and I do my writings with the Hill and Town Hall every week, I just haven't had time to write another book. So I have these two books. It's interesting. The forward was by, at the time, the CEO of the Museum of the Bible, Harry Hargrave. Now there's a new CEO, Carlos Campos, and in fact, I did an interview with him on Town Hall, my Bible study. Sometimes I do interviews. I deviate a little bit from my Bible study, but it's always tied into the Bible somehow. And in
Okay.
March, I did an interview with Carlos Campos because he'd only been there less than a year at that time,
Mhm.
and he's a great addition to the Museum of the Bible, and they're really plugging along there. It's a wonderful museum. Anyone who's never been there before, highly recommend people go. But I do interviews from time to time. I did an interview late last year with Jonathan Rumi, who it plays Jesus in The Chosen. He had a
And where
movie that
where
was
can
that was
we
coming out.
read that one?
Well, you can read it on Town Hall.
Okay.
If you go to my archive at myraadams.com and click on Town Hall and just scroll on down. I think that was in October because he had a movie that came out called Heart of the Servant that about Father Flanagan, who started Boys Town, very famous
Yeah,
ministry.
I'm familiar with.
And yeah, so he did a movie about that he was executive producer of. So I did an interview with him about that. Jonathan Rumi, by the way, loves the Shroud, loves it. He came to our exhibit. We had a 4-day exhibit last July. It was called the National Eucharistic Congress. It was in Indianapolis. 60,000 people were there. It was
Wow.
huge. And we had a 4-day exhibit. Jonathan came to our exhibit. He loves the Shroud. I can't even tell you how much he loves the Shroud of Turin. So that's really great. We have a real support in him.
Hmm.
But many people love the Shroud. The more people learn about the Shroud, the more they understand that it can't be anything but the authentic burial shroud of Jesus because it's from God. No man could ever have produced it. There's no art involved. There's no, stain or dye or any kind of substance that an artist would use.
Hmm.
The image itself sits on top of the cloth. It doesn't penetrate the cloth. The only substance that penetrates the cloth, and this follows the timeline of how Jesus was wrapped in the shroud when he was taken down from the cross and put in the tomb, blood got from his body onto the shroud. So blood seeps through the cloth like you would expect it to. It's linen. So blood first, image second. The image
Mm,
came on early Sunday morning. And when
mm,
the image appears on the cloth, there's no blood.
mm,
So it's like blood first, image second. Now, and that in of itself is a miracle. The
hmm,
fact that the image sits on top of the cloth, but the blood penetrates the cloth. But it
mm,
follows the timeline just perfectly.
mm.
Yeah. So that's just one of there's so many
Amazing.
mysteries of the shroud. I actually talk about the shroud quite a bit on different podcasts and shows and things like that and speak on it. So I can talk about it forever. But it's just so fascinating. And now we are in a renaissance. We are absolutely in a renaissance of the shroud's popularity.
Hmm.
And it's like I say in politics, there's no ceiling. There's no ceiling to how popular the shroud can be. Just like there's no ceiling about how popular Jesus can be. There's no ceiling on the shroud, and it just keeps getting more and more popular. People are fascinated by it,
Hmm.
and that's just going to keep going because
Yeah.
people want hope. I believe it's because people want hope, and Christ
Yeah.
gives us hope. And the more screwed up the world is, the more messed up the world is, people turn to Jesus more.
Yeah. Well, he's a great person to turn to. He can give you the peace that passes all understanding.
That is
So,
very true.
Well,
Very,
Myra,
very
this has
true.
been wonderful. I just appreciate you taking all the time to share what you're doing, and hopefully when you get up here in the DC market area, we can get together again. But
Thank
we're
you.
going to get this out there and tell a little bit more about what you're doing and let people know where you're writing. And your website again is
MyraAdams.com is my regular writing website.
okay.
But the website about the Shroud of Turin is National Shroud of Turin Exhibit.org.
Okay.
And that
Do you have a
actually
link
on my
on, do you have a link on your website for it at all?
yeah, actually, I have a link on the, I don't have the link on MyraAdams.com, but if you went to if you go to my town hall on MyraAdams.com, every week on my town hall Bible study, I link to it. At the
Okay.
end in my bio, they have my book link and my books link, and also all about the shroud.
Okay.
So all that is actually in my town hall
All
as well.
right.
So I promote it. I do promote the Shroud of Turin quite a bit because people just find it so fascinating, and there's
Exactly.
so much
Yeah, a lot of people are.
misinformation. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't that familiar with it. I'd read bits and pieces about it, but I think the best way for everyone to get familiar with your work is to go to townhall.com and read and get your books. Um, Fascinating books. So,
Yes,
uh,
actually, if you go to Town Hall, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little magnifying glass. You can just put in my name. And
okay,
on Town Hall, I go by Myra, Myra, middle name Khan, Kahn, Adams,
okay,
Adams. But if you go to MyraAdams.com, then everything is there. Just press on the link that says Myra's Archive, and
okay,
everything comes up all the places I've written, everything I've written, is on there. And so that's really, probably one of the best really see all the different things I do, except, for my shroud exhibit. I don't put that on there. I don't like to mix. It's like my writing is one thing. I try not to mix my political with my Bible study. I try to keep those
mm,
separate. That's why I actually have two names. I use Myra Adams for the Hill, and I use Myra Con Adams for Town Hall, which I don't like
mm,
to mix them. And then for National Shroud Turn exhibit, that's just a separate website because people, you know. It's enough to be a Messianic Jew. Okay, I get enough grief about that. But then to write about politics and to write about religion, as they like to say, everyone hates me.
you have jumped in with
So,
both feet. I tell you what.
I just irritate more people. You can't even imagine.
Well,
So,
Paul irritated a lot of people too, but he got a lot of traction out of that too. So,
yes,
yeah.
that is very, very true.
But you're doing the work he called you to do, and you have the enthusiasm and the just a wonderful presence about you that draws people to Jesus. I knew that when I first met you. So you got this wonderful
Yes.
smile, and
Oh, thank you. Well, we
yeah,
go
you're
back to the 90s. Boy, I
we
met
go
you
a long
through
way back.
Media Fellowship.
Yep,
That's how I met you. And I think you were working at WAVA at the time. I believe you
probably.
were.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it's been a long time. That's how I met Nina May, who was also on your show. And Jill Abramson is her name now, and she changed her name.
Aronson.
Aronson, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Aronson.
Rabbi Ron and Jill.
Yeah, yes, and they were on your show too, right?
Yep. Yep.
And in fact, you know what? I have coming up July 24th, I think, is if that's a Sunday. That is when I'm going to have Nina May. Actually, I'm going to do an interview with her on my
Okay.
town hall Bible study,
All right.
and so yeah, that won't be until later on this month. But promoting her book and the movie.
Yep.
I like to promote my friends.
So
So
do I.
any friends that have books or movies or doing cool things, I find a way to put them in my town hall. Bible study because there's always a connection to the Bible, and
I
sometimes it's
love
nice
it.
to break it up and have different topics, not just the Bible study every week, which of course is fun and make it more fun and entertaining. It's not your typical Bible study. Let's just put
Yeah,
it
I
like
can
that,
imagine.
okay?
Yeah.
It's just not.
Well,
So
we this is a brand new program, so we're trying to get the word out. We're still you know, looking to widen our audience, but we've gotten a lot of great feedback. So um I hope that God just continues to bless your ministry and I'm
Thank you. And
this,
you too. Your ministry, you have a ministry too. You've had one always. You've always been a warrior, a prayer warrior. Always. I remember you like that. And that's how you still are.
well, anytime I can pray for you, let me know.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm so glad we reconnected.
So am
I
I.
appreciate that. We hadn't talked in a while, so
I
it's great to.
know.
I feel like we had the sisterhood going.
Yeah,
There was like a small group of us that, all were all because of Nina and you and Jill and Donna Rice Hughes and Elise. I mean, we all knew each other
yeah,
and all did a lot of really fun things together.
we
And so
did.
I feel like we had the sisterhood, even though all of us have sort of moved away and gone different directions. Not all of us, but many of us
Well, a
have moved
lot of
different
you have
directions.
moved to Florida, and I still haven't made that leap. So I'm still here in the DC market, and
Mhm.
so is Nina and Elise. I
Yeah,
know a
they go
couple
back
of
and
them
forth though,
south.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So wonderful. Well, thank you so much
well, thank you
again,
for having me. I appreciate
and
it.
we'll get this out there, and feel free to pass it on. So
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
God
You
bless
take
you, Myra.
care. God bless you
Okay.
too. Bye.
Bye bye.